on board, and what was the first time you met Josh, and what were your conversations like?
Well, it was exactly as Jack just said it. It was the enthusiasm to work with Josh, no matter what the project was going to be. The fact that it was table tennis, the fact that it was a period piece, made it all the more exciting. But Jack just said it so beautifully, man. Josh is that rare figure that inspires everyone in front of the camera, behind the camera, to give, 10,000%. And a true honor tonight, really, because I'm a late addition to this Q&A, to be next to Jack Fisk, because this man is probably the finest production designer on the planet. And,
I'm humbled by Timothy.
Now, I know that both of you guys are, very meticulous in terms of prep and research and all that kind of stuff. So, Timothy, what's the first thing you do when you get a character like this? Obviously, you've got to spend, as I understand it, you're spending years learning how to play table tennis. So, just talk a little bit about the prep, the learning table tennis, the figuring out the physicality of this guy. Because it was really funny, watching you walk down the hall just now. I was like, this does not seem like the same guy I've been watching in here for 2 hours. You just move completely differently. So clearly you're thinking through what this guy is, what he's going to be from his head to his feet.
well, some of it is almost muscle memory, and as you said before in your prior question, the story wasn't laid out until 2024, or I want to say 2024. But the table tennis I knew pre-COVID, so it's just something I would play casually. I also had a number of coaches over the years. About 2 years out from the movie, the table tennis coordinator on the film, Diego Schlott, and his wife, Wei Li, became my coaches, and I worked with them ad nauseum in LA, nonstop. And then as you get closer, as you dial into the actual plot, I definitely had character references and, nonstop conversations with Josh about what he wanted the film to feel like, what he wanted Marty to feel like,
Well, did you have, in terms of your reference points, I read that this guy is loosely based on a real person. I mean, how much of that did you know? Were you thinking about that or doing any research, or is this just purely based off of the script?
Yeah, I thought we weren't allowed to talk about that at first, and now everyone's talking about it. So it's definitely loosely based on this figure, Marty Reisman, who was a very charismatic figure in New York in table tennis. And if you meet a certain athlete of a certain time in New York, they all knew Marty Reisman, or I'd heard a story from him. Definitely there's film references that Josh gave me that I kind of keep close to the chest. As soon as you say one thing, then people think that was the main inspiration, But more than that, though, which I've talked about before, it's really the sports figures I feel like I grew up on, or Michael Jordan, this documentary, The Last Dance, that I found tremendously inspiring about being on a singular pursuit. This movie's about the American dream, I feel, in all of its glory and its warts, and I loved tapping into that spirit. It felt so rare in a movie. I'm so proud of this movie because it doesn't feel sentimental in a sense, and there's sentiment in it, but it's not preaching at you. I love that. Someone said to me, is it complicated playing someone who's maybe morally ambiguous, to put it generously? And I thought it was very freeing. Usually if you're the titular character in a movie, you're walking a certain moral line, you're the hero, you're redemptive. I feel like that's more constraining in a sense. This is humanity and all of its ugliness, and there's so much. We were talking about it backstage. Jack said there's a little bit of Marty in everyone, and I feel like there's a lot of Marty in everyone, and certainly there is in me. I hope I didn't cross people and light gas stations on fire the way he did, but I feel like there's so much I could relate to in it.
And the performances are incredible. And Jack, I'm wondering, for you as a production designer, how much do you think about your work in terms of helping facilitate the actor's best work? Is that something that you think about, or is it no, that's Josh's problem?
I'm married to an actor, and I think about it all the time, and that's why I'm in this business. I love films about characters, and I love figuring out where they came from. Helping the actors, have a, and when you read a script, it's a lot of words. There's no pictures, and working with the director, finding out the film he wants to make, you kind of assemble a world for the actors, and if that world helps them, we've succeeded. I've some good friends, they say, if we do our work right, you don't notice it, and if we do it right, it also helps inform the story and helps inform the actors.
If I could piggyback on that, I've never, I don't want to speak hyperbolically, but to step onto what Jack Fisk said, it it was like I went to Universal City a week ago, and that's gonna sound disrespectful, but it's like the opposite of that. You know what I mean? It's like shit. They're never gonna let me back in there, but where it's like very unlived in, and here was just even that bowling sequence, the Bowl-O-Rama sequence. I mean, that was just a joy to step into that day and see how they did it and see the before and after. And I love how Jack just put it. I never heard that before, but you almost don't want to notice it in a sense. Nothing poked out like, oh, this is where the Truman Show wall you never hit. It was the level of detail was extraordinary.
Well, and Timothée, what's it like for you as an actor? You've got this real spectrum of people you're playing opposite, from people like Gwyneth Paltrow, who's obviously very established, to someone like Abel Ferrara, who is in the film industry but not an actor, to a ton of non-professional actors that Josh has put in there. And I'm just curious how that affects your process, and do you work differently with the different types of actors? Do different types give you things that the others don't?
No, I loved it. I think the only real challenge on a technical level I could describe is that sometimes the light goes out. If you're working with someone professional, the light's always going to be on in a sense. And but I loved that. I'm really not at the school of acting or thinking that went to conservatory. I have a tremendous respect for people that went to conservatory, but I think acting's in the cracks of life. I think to say you're a professional actor is almost stretching the word. We're supposed to be reflections of humanity, no matter how pretentious and cheesy that sounds. It's really what we're getting at. So I loved it, and if anything, I felt like the responsibility was on me, if as the sort of central character in the plot, to make sure people, it's almost like acting with kids, or if you're not on, that would happen to me when I shot Wonka. If I wasn't on, they're not giving you anything back. Like, you're clearly not doing a good job. So we had a scene with Ratso in the movie, who plays my uncle. He's fantastic. Bob Dylan gave him the name Ratso, and it was sort of a struggle in that scene where it was a confrontation with him, and then when it came to life, it was extraordinary. There's another sequence in the film, I was really getting into someone's face and they wouldn't get angry with me. This is crazy, man. But it kept you on your toes,
He must have had a great face, though.
Absolutely, and he was great in the movie.
Well, speaking of being on your toes, I mean, Jack, last time I talked to you, I got the impression that you guys were really moving fast on this movie, and I'm wondering if that kind of speed, like, does that sort of find its way into the DNA of the movie a little bit, and does it sort of force you guys, like is there a positive? I know people complain that there's never enough time and there's never enough money, but does it sort of, for both of you, like put you in a situation where you're maybe operating on instinct a little more, like in terms of the pace and energy?
Well, I love how you framed that question. I never really thought of it like that before, which is to say that the stress of the shoot, you're almost suspicious of that tone creeping in. And I think that was true. I think I did worry at times, is the live wire nature of what's going around this going to influence what's on screen here? And then I guess the positive is the tone is frenetic, but based on that line of thinking, the moments I'm most proud of in this movie, I think, are the ones where another vibe almost creeps in or something. I love the scene with Bella in the restaurant, and I'm paying for Kevin's bill, and I just like the Marty tone there, because the rest of the movie can be so frenetic. That one's kind of a calmer. It's still cocky and abrasive, but it's a calmer tone,
Should be like, what was your favorite set?
It might have been I don't want to get this wrong. I think it's the former New Jersey Nets home arena, which is the Izod Center in New Jersey, and it was where the British table tennis, the British Open, for lack of a better expression, is in the beginning of the film, the World Championships, and I just loved it. I love how they retrofitted it. I loved the 1950s vibe of it. I loved hearing the announcer boom over almost like it was Wimbledon or something. I love the sound design on that scene too. They go, "Let's go America!" And that's not a very sophisticated answer, but I just loved that. And also because I'm a basketball fan, so I was like, wow. You can find pictures of Michael Jordan playing there online, and I'm playing table tennis. It's awesome.
Well, it's a really great movie, and I'm just curious, before we wrap up here, did you guys know what you had while you were shooting? I mean, I know you've talked about Josh Safdie's exuberance and all that kind of stuff, but did you get a sense that you were working on something special?
there was a sizzle reel towards the end that Josh showed all of us. He showed us at the perfect time. I think everyone had no energy left. There was 3 weeks left, and he showed us a sizzle reel, and everyone's spirits gathered again in a good way. But I can't say yes confidently. This felt like a comet, you know, and there was no real reference point in 1950s table tennis thriller heist movie. So, you know, it felt awesome to all of us, but I don't know. I think the reception, none of it's taken for granted, and it's just been awesome to see it resonate, because it's like that bathtub scene, or the fact that there's 80s music across a 1950s movie. You know, there's so many things you can go like, that's where it's going to explode, you know. And for whatever reason, because of Josh, it all came together beautifully.